Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us. This is an important topic. I think it's so fitting for right now, and I'm so appreciative of these three strong, badass ladies that are here with us online. Thank you so much. I have Ruth Andersen, Ruth Poniarski, and Allie Coker. Thank you so much for being here. Hope has her new book, How to Remodel a Life, a guide to living well with alcoholism and bipolar. It's a struggle. You're a native New Englander, as I am, a nutmegger. I was born in Connecticut, also, and I live in North Carolina now. I love it. You have three children, and tell us about this book. What made you want to write this? And thank you for writing it.
Yeah, well, I was tired of the stigma of alcoholism and bipolar disorder as being something very negative. I would tell people that I was bipolar or that I had alcoholism, and they would look at me as if I had three heads. And actually, I feel that my alcoholism and my bipolar have been a gift to me, a huge gift that have taught me a whole new way of life to live. And I've been sober for 39 years.
Wow.
And I thought, why not write an upbeat book that's also a memoir? Memoir on one side, upbeat book on the other side, with the tools that I've used over the years. So my book is written in chapters that have the memoir part on one side and the tools on the other side. And it's all equated to remodeling a house. So that I have chapters like letting light in and raising the roof. And these all tie into things that I've done to, help myself get and stay sober over the years. So it's really a very uplifting book, and it's funny. It's in ways tragic because of the years that I spent with my disease. But like I said, I've had 39 years of sobriety, and I have a wonderful life now, and I wanted to really share that with other people.
Very true. And Ruth, welcome. This is your first book. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure.
Journey of the Self, a memoir. So, yeah.
Of an artist, memoir of an artist. Well, my book takes place between the 1970s and 1980s. I take you through a journey of a very difficult journey of episodes. It all culminated and started when I was at a college party in my senior year, and I unknowingly ingested angel dust. And that set off a whole prelude of episodes for the next 10 years. I was under the care of a psychiatrist who was negligent, and I had very death-defying episodes, and I take you through the journey, my mindset, and how I'm thinking, and you actually live through these experiences and episodes that I had. And it took me 7 years to find, after I had a terrifying accident from a terrifying episode, I found the right doctor for me. He instilled common sense. He told me, to limit my stimulus in my life because I was doing a ton of things which I should not have indulged in. That is. And from then on, my life changed. At the end, it has a happy ending. The book has a very happy ending. And I'll tell you, it took me about 20 years to find the right medication for my bipolarity, and 30 years to find the right dosage of that medication. But taking you back to the 70s and 80s, the medications were not really that sophisticated at that point, and they were limited to the effects in dealing with bipolarity. But as time went on, after my book ends in the year 1987, but after that, my life became more normal because I had the right doctor and the right medicine, which took a lot of research and experiences to find.
And unfortunately, Ruth, there are so many people like you, that, and doctors just want to like give you another pill, but sometimes you really need to find the right one who will actually listen. So good for you. I'm grateful that he was able to find them. And finally, we have Miss Allie Coker. Did I say your name? I have a habit of saying names wrong because I read before I do, but thank you so much for being here, Allie. Your book, The Last Resort, takes an eye-opening peek inside the most vulnerable sides of humanity, inspiring questions on the unquantifiability of sanity and reality. So tell us your experience reading this book.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me. And you did say my name exactly right. So good job. Yeah, my book is a novella. It's super, super tiny. If you guys can see that. So this book is my first novella, actually. I had a book published in 2012 that was creative nonfiction, very different topic, very different format, because in addition to being nonfiction, that one was mostly comprised of interviews. And this one is much more of a narrative, although it is disjointed. So I wanted to focus on, mine is not a hopeful topic, as opposed to hopes. It's not upbeat, right? It deals more with like the harsh realities of suicide attempts, and the different kinds of people that end up in modern day mental institutions. Spoiler alert, could be anyone. So I kind of wanted to get at the heart of that, but tackle it from what I hope is like a relatable and compassionate point of view, because I do think that we still have a lot of those staid and negative images. We, on TV and movies, we tend to go all the way back to like the 40s and the 50s and the snake pit days. And we never really get to capture what things look like now inside facilities that help treat inpatients. So it's a read that gets you to hear many different voices, from like the mental health workers to the patients to some of the other authorities that get involved, whether that be like the police or the night shift workers or the nurses. So I'm happy to be here, though. Thank you.
Well, I'm very glad you are here too. What made you take on this subject, Allie?
I think that it was partially what I said about, I just was noticing that in our entertainment, we tend to get stuck in time. And I really wanted to see an updated version of that. But then the other part of it is that I myself struggle with depression. And like Hope was saying about these things sometimes turning into gifts, I would say that depressive realism, which is the theory that depressed people actually see things more accurately in the world, or at least differently, is somewhat of a superpower at times, because it just makes you look at things from a different angle that other people may not have considered, or to take off like the rose-colored glasses. And yeah, after I tried lots of different projects in between 2012 and 2017, and none of them really stuck, until I hit on this and talked to other people that also were dealing with a variety of, mental health issues. And I just wanted to put a face to that, I think, instead of it constantly being like a diagnosis. So.
Yes, because you are not your disease. Like, where every single one of you has something different going on with you, and your experiences make you different. And I think that the more people talk about it, like even Meghan Markle, when she came up on that interview and she was talking about like her being so depressed and scared for her life, that made it real for people. And if she can have everything supposedly in the world and still be depressed and still be anxious, why aren't we letting ourselves be that way? I suffer from depression and anxiety too. It gets worse at sometimes. I feel like this pandemic has really made people come out of the closet. Because you have no control over your life. And I know my friends in the mental health field, they can't keep the appointments on the books because it's overwhelming, which I'm so glad people are finally getting to talk about it. Like diabetes, it's an illness, and what I found fascinating is if you take the brain and you do a pin on the brain, you can have memories you've never had before. So when we're being born, our brains can do so much, and it's a miracle if we're all born completely normal, but who knows somebody that's completely normal?
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Ruth, I want to ask you, I am not normal. But I have a cousin who he was a rower. He had like scholarships to all the Ivy League schools in the Northeast. And she and he actually he had LSD in a pump, and 9 kids were taken to the emergency room, and he had drug-induced schizophrenia. That happens more so. Did you find out that it did run in your family prior to that, or are you an anomaly in your family with the mental illness?
With mental illness, it wasn't recorded, but I think my father suffered from a form of bipolar. He was never treated because it never reached that point. Like, he was a very active person, and he had a very active mind, and he had insomnia, but that's the limit of what he had. For me, I had extreme insomnia. My mind would race, and I would go for 7 days without sleep, and then I would have a bipolar episode brought on by stimulus in the environment, and I took it, and I just couldn't sleep, and it raced in my mind, and I had a lot of issues, guilt issues, and then I would have an episode. I won't go into it, but they were very dangerous episodes.
Yeah.
Life threatening.
Yeah.
But I got through it, and I never gave up. I'm here.
Yes.
I'm here. Yeah. So.
And Miss Hope, who has a wonderful sister that lives in the area, she's great. She comes into the store. How did you feel growing up? Did you feel different, or this doesn't just hit you like a ton of bricks. It's something that's gradually that comes over your life. Do you remember feeling different as a child, or?
I do remember feeling different as a child, but when I was just a wreck. I was very different from my sisters, and I was very impetuous and impulsive, and I don't know what I was like as a child. Very difficult to live with. But when I hit 14, I started drinking, and that took away the feeling that I was different, because I just depended on alcohol at that point. And I didn't get diagnosed bipolar until I was in my 40s, when I had a manic episode after my father died. And I found someone at that time who properly diagnosed me and medicated me with the proper drug for bipolar disorder. I had been just being medicated for, diagnosed with depression and medicated for depression up to that time. And this woman, her name was Julia Temple, she said, you're bipolar. You got all the symptoms, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to find the cocktail that you need to have to keep your bipolar in order. And she said, there's no reason why you can't live a normal life as long as you take your medicine. Don't go off it, even when you're feeling good, stay on it and stick to it. And I've listened to people like her all through my time getting sober and staying sober and into my bipolarity. And, I really think it is curable. I think there is no reason why someone who has a mental illness, if they do the things they're told to do, if they've got a good doctor, a good team, why they can't enjoy life. There's so many, that we have so many tools that we can use to make our lives not only enjoyable, but very useful and purposeful. And, I'm a little bit kooky. I go up and down and, all that. But, I don't worry about it. That's just the way I am. So,
I like that. So Allie and Ruth, did you have any similar circumstance? Did you have to find the right doctor? I don't know if you're in therapy, Allie, but did you have to go through finding the right doctor or the right medication?
So definitely in therapy. I always tell everyone, I think everyone should be in therapy, whether they have
all the normal people.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, all the normal people, because everyone has something they need to work through, and it's really helpful to have that third party that's not involved in your life. So I always encourage that, definitely. Mine Mine was a little bit different as a journey. I didn't really get hit by depression until I was in towards the end of college. And I didn't know what to do about it at all because I had been really, really ill as a child. I had cancer twice as a child.
Oh,
Happiest
wow.
kid you've ever seen. Did not impact me being happy at all. And just but my whole thing around it was I didn't want to get behind in school, and I didn't want to I wanted to have a normal life. And my parents, they were like, "Are you sure you don't want to take a break?" And I just kind of kept my head down and kept moving through those years. So when I got hit by it in college, I didn't really know how to deal with it. And I thought, well, if I could go to school and keep up with things and do what I need to do when I have cancer, this should not be a big deal. And kind of forced myself to stay in it when I probably, if I could go back, should have taken a break, taken care of myself, gotten the help I needed. So from that point forward, it probably took a good 5 to 10 years to find that right therapist, to force myself to go to therapy, because ironically, it's the last thing someone that's depressed wants to do, even though it's the first thing they need. It's just hard to physically get yourself there. And then find a routine that kind of worked for me. So yeah, it's a bit of a different journey. Yeah.
Ruth, I worked in a psych floor for 6 months. Were there doctors that you saw that needed more help, or nurses that you saw that needed more help than you thought you ever did? Because there is that saying, physician, heal thyself.
As I said before, I was under the care of a doctor who really didn't understand that I was a high-risk patient. And he didn't address how I was living. I had a lot of stimulants in my life. I would sign up for workshops. I would go to Greece. I would travel. I graduated with an architect degree. And I kept going, but all through my activities, due to the stimulus of, somebody could just look at me wrong and say something to me, and I'll go off and, on a thinking tangent, and I'll just ruminate over it, and I would lose sleep. And then this pattern, it developed into a pattern over the 7 years that I was under the care of this doctor, where I would lose sleep, and then I would have a breakdown, and then 3 or 4 weeks I would get better and back to my old self, and then I would go on as if nothing was wrong. And I didn't safeguard myself for the next episode. So it repeated itself in a pattern. Every 6 months to a year, I would break down. And the doctor never really made a synopsis of this. He never, caught the pattern that I was in and prepared me for the next time that I would go through this severe episode with losing sleep, thinking that, I'm okay and I can take care of things. But I was in denial, but that denial was a form of hope, and that got me through.
Was that the same time every year? Did it become like an anchor, oh, here it's spring again, and I'm going to be depressed and I'm going to have a breakdown? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy almost,
It happened in seasons. I don't know whether you, Hope and Allie, it happened in the fall, I don't know, and around holiday time, and, a switch of seasons, and we have 4 seasons, a switch of seasons, then it would that stimulus, along with all the activities that I was really indulged in and that I really should not have been, those all culminated into a pattern of happening. It would happen twice a year, I would say,
Yeah.
Until I really, and in my 7th year, I had a devastating accident. Shall I explain it?
Sure, yeah.
I went 7 days ago. I participated in this workshop to make you psychologically more assertive, and that really blew me away. I developed insomnia. I didn't sleep for 7 nights. I was in an apartment on the 3rd level, and I thought, and there was work going on, carpentry work in the next apartment next to me, and the drilling was going on and on. I couldn't get sleep. I tried to get sleep, couldn't do it. I went to the doctor. On the 6th day of no sleep, I went to the doctor. He said, just go home and take more medication and whatever. Well, the 7th night that I couldn't sleep, I climbed out of my window 30 feet above the ground, and I couldn't hold the gravity. Oh no, so what I did was I tied a flannel sheet to the table in my kitchen, and I went with that sheet outside the window. In 30 seconds or whatever it was, I had to plan my fall so I wouldn't fall on my head. And I fell 30 feet.
Oh my God.
Blacked out. And the next moment I woke up, I was in the emergency room, critical care, probably at about 1 o'clock in the morning. And then from then on, my life really changed. I was in the hospital for I was in the critical unit of the hospital for a month. And then the next month, I was at rehab at Rusk in New York City. Learned how to live in a wheelchair, not knowing would I'll ever walk again.
Wow.
And
Is this all detailed in your book too, Ruth?
all detailed, all there.
Well, let's leave people wanting more and hear more of your story. But
that was the.
Thank God you're here.
I'm here, and plus, I changed my career. Not architecture anymore. I changed in 1988. I began painting.
Awesome.
So, painter, and then I have poems to all my paintings. In 1995, I started writing the poems to the paintings, and I've just been creating and creating for that period of time.
It's like a meditation to paint and everything too, and to write too.
And also, I have a very active, imaginative mind, so I was able to focus. I was able to focus my imagination.
Excellent.
Yeah. So,
Hope, let's get to you. So, you're growing up and you start drinking. Was there a moment where you're like, I needed help, or was there more of, I can't do this anymore? Because they say alcoholism is a self-medicating. You're trying to escape yourself. You were married. You had 3 kids.
Well, I wasn't married at first. I was, from the time I was 14 to the time I was 22, I was involved with many different men. And I ended up getting married when I was 22 to a man who was 45 years older than I was.
Oh my.
25 years older than I was. And that marriage fell apart in a couple of years. And I was writing at the time. I knew that my life was just going downhill. I couldn't hold a job. I couldn't, even though I got good jobs, I got a great job at Harvard, but I couldn't hold it and I quit. And so anyway, when I was 23, I knelt on my rug in the living room and I asked for help. I just said, help me. And I didn't know who I was asking help from. And then things started to change for me. And a year and a half later, I ended up coming into the rooms and I have been sober ever since. So it kind of like I just bottomed out. I just reached the point at which I just did not want to be. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want it anymore. So I got divorced from that husband and stayed close to the program. And, my life went on. And then I guess it was about 8 years later, I found my new husband, my second husband, and we got married and had 3 kids, and our life is kind of normal.
Again, we use that term relatively,
Right, yeah.
Nothing's normal.
We're both alcoholics, so that tells you something. But anyway, we have a good life. I mean, we really do. It's very simple, and it's very grounded in today, and very full of positivity and just gratitude for all that we have in our lives. We don't have a whole lot of things, but we don't need a lot of things. We just appreciate what we have. So that's good enough, So.
Is there any of you that felt like any of this was insurmountable at all? Or, you must have had those days where you hit the wall. And is there any that you can describe to us? Allie, you're shaking your head.
I am. I was like, any given week, it just depends. I think it just depends. I think that there have been several moments where you just can't see your way out of the situation, and your logic knows one thing and your emotions and that little voice, that nagging voice in your head knows something else, right? And that's why in therapy they tell you don't believe everything you think. So I don't know that it's one defining moment so much as it is just knowing and having to remember that if you push past the last several, then maybe you can hang on like just a moment longer. But yeah, that's kind of how it goes, I think, for me at least. But.
Yeah.
I just want to remind everybody that there is a buy the book button on there, and we will have signed book plates on there. So you can just click that and we will send them to you. There's also an ask the question button. And if you want to pop a question in there, I can ask the authors. But I still have some more questions too, because there is such a stigma. Have you noticed things in other people, other family members, friends, or anything where like you need help? In that,
Oh yes,
yeah,
definitely.
You are me, like you are textbook bipolar.
Definitely.
What is the best way to go about that? Because it seems like you all have come to like the reckoning for yourself that you need help. But what about that person that doesn't know that they need help or can't get the help they need?
Well, I think it's more about, is the person willing to surrender? Is the person willing to accept that they need help? Because a lot of my siblings and the people that I know who struggle with accepting that they're alcoholics or accepting that they're bipolar, they just don't want to believe it about themselves. They're in denial, and as somebody said before, and they don't want to go there. But so I think in my book, one of the first chapters in my book is about surrender. And you have to take that first step and accept that you're powerless over whatever it is that stands in front of you before you can get any help. I really believe that, just with all my heart.
Thing.
Yeah, it's humbling. Yeah.
Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom. You have to hit rock bottom.
Yeah. But you asked a minute ago about defining moments, and there in my lifetime as a sober woman, I have lost a lot. My mother was killed in a car accident when I was pregnant with my second child. My father died of cancer a few years later. I had a bipolar episode that nearly tore my family apart. I mean, I've lost jobs. My husband had to have a liver transplant. I mean, there's just been a whole lot of stuff that you come up against in your sobriety or your journey or whatever. And the thing is, for me, every time I get through that without giving up, without drinking, without going crazy, without, every time I lean on other people and ask for help, I get through it. And that makes me stronger, and that makes me of more use to other people because I can help them when they're going through something that's similar. So that, I think, is such a gift.
It's a superpower.
Yeah, it is a superpower.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah. I definitely agree with Hope. I think that life gives you a lot, but it also takes a lot. And to me, at least, the world it's impartial, right? So if it's going to be hard and things are going to be cruel at times, then the last thing you need to do is be hard and cruel on yourself. Right. And so I think learning to be kinder to yourself and to recognize it's okay to feel those ways. It's okay to seek help. It's never weakness. I had somebody remind me of that just this week. And I thought, well, that's a good way to look at it. I think that's important, but it is true. You can't really save other people from themselves. You have to be ready to make a change for that change to be effective. And so I think all we can do is like be very open about our stories, share with other people, be there to listen to them, highlight the ways in which our lives have gotten better through, whatever methods it is we've sought out. And so it's more about like living through example and also being there for them, next to them, even if that journey takes forever and they don't quite seek the professional help they need. I think that's the best we can do for one another, at least. So,
but at the same time, you don't. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ruth.
My second psychiatrist, he always said that therapy sometimes is better outside therapy. So if you can find a friend who will listen to you, a distant relative or a relative, and they could listen to you. And sometimes you get better feedback than your therapist. And that he would often say that you get better therapy sometimes outside of therapy. Therapy gives you a structure to, practice, and also I always say to my daughter, I say, when the problems that come up, try to objectify it and take your angst and your fear and your nervousness out of it, isolate that and go with the facts, just make a list. That's what I do to make lists. I make a lot of lists. Those are my coping mechanisms. And I try to look at it objectively and see, what can I do to problem solve? Problems come up all the time. What can I do to problem size this specific problem?
And not go down the rabbit hole of dread and doom, Right?
And also, I always said, don't put bunions in your head. I would live 30 years ahead of myself. All these bunions and fears in my head, he says, take a day at a time. That was most important. Take one day at a time.
Yeah.
Bunions in your head. That's what he would always say.
Even one moment at a time, really looking where your feet are, live where your feet are, live above your feet.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you want to be a poster child of it too. Like I heard an author speak one time. She goes, I'm gay and I'm a Black woman, but I don't want to be the gay, the Black woman. I want to be me. It was Roxane Gay, actually. And she was a phenomenal speaker. And I never thought about that. Why should she be the spokesman for all these people? Why should you all be the spokesman for, but through your books, you're helping people. Is there a way that the only thing I can compare it to is becoming a mother. So you think you're a mom and you have to be this certain way and you have to be prim and proper and perfect. How do you break out of that and just let yourself be the person you are?
It takes a lot of work. I mean, I know for me, my journey has brought me to a place where I finally am comfortable in my skin. I don't want to be anything for anybody else. It's not like I don't care about other people or care about anyone. I do. I care a lot, but being true to myself is the most important thing that I can do for myself on any given day. Loving myself and being honest with myself. Because when I can act that way in integrity, then I can act that way with other people. And, that's just, to me, that's just like the golden ring on the whole thing. So
a lot of people aren't where you are, and you've had to overcome a lot, Hope. So your name is completely perfect for you, by the way.
Hope, that's the ingredient that we need throughout everything is hope.
Yeah.
And hope you present hope.
Thanks.
Allie or Ruth, do you have an answer to that question? For being a poster child, or something you think about?
When I was growing up, I always felt different. It made me feel so different, and I didn't realize that I was kind of different, than a lot of my peers. And I was not comfortable in my skin, and I would ruminate. And finally, though, when I hit rock bottom, things started to turn around, and I realized some of my special qualities in art and as an artist. And then I really, discovered who I was through all of the adventures that I was going through. I discovered that, I was really an artist, and it took me a long time to accept that in myself. And after I hit rock bottom, that's when things turned around with the right doctor, the right support. My parents were there for support, and I had friends as a support system. I think a support system is very, very important, going through all of this. And so I developed that, with the right doctor. And again, I began to accept myself. And it took me many years to accept myself.
Mm-hmm. Good. I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was checking. So on my book, it's the publication page, the dedication, and then the author's notes. It's literally the third page of my book. in the author's note where I made sure to mention that it's not a monolithic experience. So I can't be that spokesperson. I don't want to be that spokesperson. Everybody's going to have different situations and variables and things like that. So it's really important to me to always preface it as, you know, if you're talking about your own experiences, like in my opinion, or in fiction, just to let people know, like, this is what this story looks like, but it doesn't apply to everyone necessarily. So take and leave what's useful. But yeah, I think in terms of accepting myself, it's been a very gradual process. I mean, I think it's an ongoing thing, but I think that for me, I kind of started off having this idea of what I wanted to be perceived as. And part of that was actually like harboring all of your issues inside and trying to get through that on your own, or at least like with your inner circle of maybe like closest family. And that became really suffocating after a time. And there's this really good quote that I had heard and still kind of use to this day by Dinah Shore, which is that trouble is part of your life. If you don't share it, you don't give the person who loves you a chance to love you enough. And so I think just learning to gradually be more outgoing about some of the issues that I was struggling through, whether it's mental health or anything else, was eye-opening, because you will get people and you kind of learn who your friends are, right? Who the people that really care about you are, or the people that have the capacity to care in that way are. And so I realized, okay, well, the people that are clinging close and it's kind of a mutual give and take, that works. Those are my people. And then the people that run when they see trouble, or they somehow think it's contagious. That's very common. I just got divorced in like within the last year. And sometimes I think people think that's contagious. The cancer one's another one, right? They don't really understand how that works sometimes. So I think that we sometimes feel like bad luck in all forms can be, if I associate with that person really closely, I'm gonna get sucked into this and it could happen to me. And people don't want to think it could happen to them. So I just think being more open about all my experiences and finding my people has really helped. Yeah.
Because there are people like you that need you too. So we have Jean K here. What was the point you became accepting of yourself, becoming comfortable in your own skin? Was it a process, or was it a light bulb going off? That's a good question, Jean.
Definitely a process for me.
Process?
It was a process, many, many years. Many years.
Yeah, very long process.
Most people don't find themselves until they're in their 30s and 40s anyway.
Yes.
You know, and it's a real process. But self-actualization, that's what it is. You actualize yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't find myself until I was in my 60s. Took a long time.
That took a long time, man.
I think we're all growing and changing every day too. So you're constantly finding yourself.
Yeah.
Those are compliments.
Absolutely. You know, when I wrote my book and I finished my book, it was sort of like it was a catharsis for me, and writing everything, and then I was able to look at it as a little bubble and look outside of myself. You know, and that was also a very big help for self-actualization. So actually writing the whole story brought a light to me, a coming of light to me. So.
And that was going to be my next question. I wanted to know, was there something that you uncovered, a part of yourself that you uncovered while you were writing your books?
Yes, I discovered I was funny.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that. I'd been told I was serious all my life, very, very serious. And I didn't know I had a sense of humor. I didn't know I was as positive as I was. I didn't know that I could be free of the burden that I felt was on my shoulders all the time. And I didn't know I could feel light. Just like relaxed, just not worrying about the next thing that's coming along, not having to schedule every moment of every day or have lists or do anything like that. All I had to do was get in the flow of my experiences in the day and follow them. And I would know happiness, and I would get things done, and I would do all the stuff I'm supposed to do, I guess. But I just wasn't trying so hard. And it was really nice. And this all came about because my husband had this liver operation. He got a new liver. And when he came out of the hospital, he took on a whole new life. He came out with a new organ. He became a personal trainer. He started his own business, and he's doing that to this day. And he eats very healthy. He exercises like a madman. He has his own business. He turned his life totally around. And I had spent so much of my life worrying about what I was going to be and what I was going to do and getting over resentments and everything else. Mm-hmm. And I just got to this point. I was 60 years old, and I said, God, what do you want me to do with my life? And the answer was write. I want you to write. So I wrote 4 books in 4 years. I've got 2 more book contracts on the way. I've done a lot of podcasts and things like that, and panels, and I've just become somebody new. I actually enjoy who I am today, and I'm doing the thing that I love. And that to me is like, that was what I was supposed to be doing all along, but I just didn't know it. I hadn't gotten to it yet. So that was kind of like a light bulb experience for me to just sit there and experience that coming into my life.
Nice.
Yeah.
Either one of you realize something while you were writing? Was it therapy?
I realized that I went through a heck of a lot, and I'm just lucky that I survived everything that I went through, and sharing it with people. They're able to get into my head and see where everything was going and how I evolved and how I just weathered all of these breakdowns, and and then finally, receiving the right treatment was a coming of age. I came through it, I survived it, and I feel good now. I'm in a place where I create, and I feel really good about doing what I'm doing, and I've tackled that insomnia that I had. I have a whole system that helps me sleep at night. I won't go through that, but I've tackled my problems, and I'm much better that I wrote the book. And
pat yourself on the back, Ruth. Yay.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I think for me, part of it was part of what I kind of learned by writing the book was actually craft related. I tend to write, up to this point, I tend to write shorter stories and flash fiction and things like that. And so when I sat down to start this project, I knew I wanted it from like multiple perspectives and different characters, and it's not always clear who's speaking, which character it is. And so I wasn't sure if I could kind of pull it all together to be cohesive enough to have people say, yes, that's publishable. And so I felt good that it still kind of retained its original shape, but still hopefully make sense to the reader. So I think I learned that you can be very creative in how you tell those stories. I also learned that there are people who aren't diagnosed with mental illnesses or that aren't struggling with their issues, who have things they need to hear as well. And that really came up because I have a dear friend who is a mental health worker in an institution or used to be. And in speaking to him, it was really incredible to see that side of things, and how, everything in America is an organization, unfortunately. It's a business, everything, right? And just finding out like the types of pay that they give these people to deal with these groups of issues. And it's really fascinating, but it's also very hard and sad. And these are people that most of the time are in it for the right reasons and really want to help others and have a good heart. And so you hear them kind of question, you know, I hope I made some kind of difference. And so I think that I learned, you know, it's important that they hear that message as well, that it does make a difference, whether you're a technician or an EMT or, you know, mental health worker to the group. So that definitely came to me while writing this book.
Well, I love all your books, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you giving a piece of your soul to us. I did, like 20 years ago, I read a book about McLean Hospital in Massachusetts and the bloodletting, the shock treatments, the ice treatments, the things that people have gone through for mental health. We need to fix this, and we need to start doing it. So because of your voices, I think, you know, it's a step in the right direction, and I can't thank you all enough. If you feel like you need help, call somebody, you know, because there are so many people that do actually care. And I wish you all luck with everything. And thank you so much, Hope, Ruth, and Allie. You've been wonderful. We'll be playing this again on YouTube so you can share it. I can't thank you enough. This was an important topic and very timely. I hope you all have a good night. Thank you, Suzanne Lucy, page 158 books.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you for having me.